What's up, everyone? Welcome back to the Mind Design Podcast, episode 20. We have a very, very
20.
special, distinguished guest today.
Ron Carter being the special distinguished
It's me
guest.
this time.
Yeah.
Oh, I love it.
Hey, these
So,
podcasts are great, teaching people mindset. Nothing better.
yeah, it's if you haven't picked up on it from what Brian just shared, what we like to talk about is mindset, transformation, growth, personal growth, business growth, like just transformation in general. Um, Speaking of that, something really cool that I learned, it's like growing and learning never stop, right? I've been putting out videos on YouTube for a long time on like different channels and stuff, and I learned something this week that and this is kind of technical, so I don't have to go into all the details of it, but I learned something new that helps your videos or any video show up in search in like Google search, Bing search, like all these different search algorithms and YouTube too that I haven't been doing at all that I didn't even know that you can do. And
Really?
yeah, and I guess I can kind of explain what it is, right? Instead of just some people might want to know. Uh, but so I basically learned that I already knew that whatever you title your file, like when you have the video on your computer, a lot of times it's just like if you look at the file, it's just a bunch of numbers and letters. It's like XYZ blah 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 dot MP4. Well, you want to like actually title it something that people are searching for, like change the file name and then upload it to YouTube. Um, I knew that, but
Yeah.
also what you can do with the video file itself is you can add a description like on your computer side. Like you can like right click it and add a description of what the video is about. You can add tags to it. So
Like like different things that might have people curious of what you're talking about, but a whole different
it's like
setting like?
yeah, it's like another way of signaling to the algorithm like, hey, this video is about this. Here, the easiest way is I'll just show you guys, right? Ignore my totally jumbled screen. I was just doing a bunch of stuff. Um, so like right here, God, I got stuff all over the place in here. Um,
Yeah. Ron's the IT specialist.
so like if I go over to, let's close this out. If I go over to downloads, I just did this for a video that we uploaded for this podcast, right? See, this is a video, the one that we recorded last week. If I right click it and then I click get info, see right here, it says the Mind Design Podcast, episode 19, Ron Carter, Brian Marsolais, Mindset Podcast, Transformation Podcast.
Hmm.
I entered those in there. So now it's like it's attached to the video file itself. So if people are typing in stuff like episode 19 on any search platform, when I upload this to YouTube, the YouTube video will pop up. They type in my name, they type in your name, Mindset Podcast, like it makes it more likely to pop up. And also down here at the bottom, I added this little description. Oops, and I spelled your name wrong. There we go.
Hmm.
Um, about it too, and that does the same thing. But this is just like tiny little stuff. But the whole point is of me even bringing that up is that learning and growing never stops,
Yeah.
like ever.
Absolutely. I think that's what all humans are looking for is just to keep growing and learning.
What about what about for the people who say that I've learned enough and I don't need to learn and grow anymore? Because there's people out there who have that opinion. They may not be watching this podcast, but like, what would you
Yeah.
say about those people? I know that
You
I've been
know,
like that specifically at certain points in my life.
really? Like you've literally been at a point where you're like, I don't need to learn anymore. I don't know anybody like that.
I don't know. See, I have, and I think really what was going on now that I look back on it is I had fallen out of love with the subject that I was learning things in. This was like a long
Oh.
time ago when I was like still in the military, and like I knew that I was
Mm.
going to get out in a year, and I was already really good at working on planes, and I was like, I'm not at that point in time. I was just kind of phoning it in, like
Little,
just showing up to
yeah.
work to
So
so I can
I
get
would
off work.
say that's getting maybe stale or just bored with what you're doing. So
Right.
you said, I gotta learn something else.
Now that you say that, I don't think I did that consciously, but that's what ended up happening.
Aha.
Yeah. Okay. Exhibit A. I guess I see your point.
Yeah. I mean, I think it's just I think that's what separates, us from the animals. Um, we humans always need to get better, 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 learn more, learn more. Um, my opinion, of course, but I think it's part of our human nature, part of something we've been given by the Great Spirit, God, whatever you want to call it, nature itself. We just have that mind that we need to keep on growing, or right, or our life's going to get pretty miserable pretty quick. I believe.
Mhm. So let me
What do you
ask you
think,
this.
Ron? I mean, do
I
you know anyone who, I mean, we might know people who are stagnant and you're like, well, just do this and you're going to be happier, right? Because most people that are stagnant, they're bored, they have bad words to describe how they're feeling. You know what I mean? I'm depressed, I'm bored, I don't know. It
right.
just,
I was just about to ask you, instead of giving you my thoughts on this, I
huh,
want to see what would you say to help somebody who may be in that state where they're depressed, they're bored, they're not really growing. They feel like they're not even looking to grow. And
yeah,
so as a byproduct that they feel stagnant, bored, depressed, and like basically like shit sucks. Like what's something that you would say to that specific person to try to
right,
like
right, right.
help them get out of that?
So, that's a tough one, right? Mental illness and depression and all that. That's a tough one. And I am not a doctor. I coach people.
Right.
Um,
Disclaimer.
yeah, exactly. So I think like for me, I would say, well, there's a few things, right? So the first thing I would say, do one thing. And the person would say, well, what do you mean do one thing? And I'd say, well, just do one thing for you. That might be a walk through nature. Maybe get on a bicycle. Um, maybe just make yourself something that you like to eat, but just do one thing. Start with one thing every day. Just do one thing. Just something you want to do. Um, and then I think from there I would be like, join groups, be around people, help others. Whenever you help somebody else, it's always going to lift your moods. Always.
Yeah. Just playing devil's advocate here. Like, what
Good.
if
I
I'm this
I love it.
person, right? And
Yeah.
I'm like, I don't want to join groups. I don't want to talk to people. Like, I'm not doing any of that.
I don't want to help that lady across the street.
Right. But I'm saying this because one of the things is like, whenever I've been in slumps like that, and this was a long time ago, before I knew the stuff that we talk about here on this podcast, I didn't want to go do anything involving other people. I'm like, and if you told me that, I'd be like, get the like, no,
Yeah. Yeah.
even though it's
I-
the thing that's going to help me. And a lot of times that's the reason why I need help in the first place is because I feel like that towards those actions.
Yeah. Well, that comes down to do one thing for you, Ron. The hell with everybody else. Do one thing for you, Ron. What do you like doing? That would be the question.
Mhm.
What do you want to do? Maybe I don't want to do nothing, right? I don't want to do anything. Well, maybe what could you want to do, right? Or
Right.
what do you think, like, I don't know, boy, that's a tough one. There are some tough people out there, but um
I think what you just said is gold, where you said, um, like, what do you want to do? And they're like, I don't want to do anything. And like one question that I thought of that you reminded me of is like, okay, totally get that. But like, let's imagine for a second that there was something that you wanted to do just for yourself.
mm,
Okay,
yeah.
so what would that thing be if there was? We're just imagining, just pretend.
Yeah, right, right.
It's like a nice backdoor way to be like, okay, yeah, but really, what is it? You know?
I mean, you put me in a spot where it's like I'm dealing with someone who just doesn't want to do anything, right? So, hey, you know what I want to do, Ron? I want to kick a dog, right? I mean, uh, but
Oh,
I appreciate it, and yeah, it's true. But do like if you just do one thing for you, let's say you are, because there are a lot of depressed people, um,
I mean, and you can be, and even when I say depressed, I don't mean like clinically, because you can be in a depressed state, but not clinically depressed, you know?
exactly. You might not have the label on you.
Right.
But what is it? Motion creates emotion, right? So workout, you could say someone, well, just try to work out a little, go for a walk, try to get that, try to get something flowing in your body that'll release endorphins.
Yeah.
I don't know, but I
I think
think the
it's
start is just do one thing. I think that's a good, one thing for you. It doesn't even have to be for anyone else. If you want to get to that person, that you're trying to describe.
right. And that's how anything starts anyways. Um, Thanks for entertaining my questions. I know I put you on the spot. I'm like, all right, Brian, so right now you're
Yeah.
coaching somebody who doesn't even want to be coached. Help them. What do you
Yeah.
do?
Call 911. Oh,
um,
man.
but your advice of like just doing one thing, it's super solid because that's the only way that we do anything to begin with. When people ask me, I've had some people ask me, man, how do you go from, you might have asked me this on previous podcast episodes, how do you go from like being like on drugs and on the street to now you have this business, you're doing all this stuff, like your life's totally like, how does that happen? And
Right.
it's like, and it doesn't happen from like a series of events. I mean, yes, a series of events occurred in a specific order to
Mm.
facilitate this change, but individually in the moment of all those events, in every single one of those separated moments, it was just one action to do, one thing to do. And then that leads to like another set of choices, even though they may be small, right? It's like if I'm totally, I use this example a lot because it's just easy to picture, but if I'm totally like overweight, like 600 pounds on the couch with like Cheeto dust all over me, wearing
Wow.
the same clothes, right?
Ah,
And I don't want to be that, right?
yeah.
Like, well, the first thing that I can do, it's like there's a whole bunch of things to get from like that person to like how I look right now, right? There's a lot of different things that have to happen. But the first thing could be stop buying Cheetos. Just
Hmm.
something simple like that. It's like now you're still the same weight, you're still sitting on the couch, but at least you don't have Cheeto dust all over you anymore.
Like drop the Cheetos
Right. And then
and
once the Cheetos are dropped, then you can think of like the next thing to do, which might be like take a lap around the living room, right? And this is all leading to walking
mm,
outside and taking a lap around the block, walking around and some things you may try and you may do and you may not like them. You may be like, that sucked. I don't ever want to do that again. That's okay. Don't do that again. Find something else, you know?
yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, there's so many things out there. Um, in so many groups too, and you start off with one thing, you find your passion, then maybe possibly that way. Next thing you know, maybe you're walking with one of your neighbors, or, maybe you're out on a nature hike and you just bump into somebody, and next thing you know, you're doing the hikes together. And then that builds, that's what builds communities.
Right. And it's funny, just thinking about this and thinking about what you just said, I'm like totally consumed with surfing now. I know I talk about it, I bring it up on almost every podcast,
Yeah.
but the way that that happened was last year. I just liked going to the beach, and it was hot, and so we were going to the beach, and we weren't going to a beach like I wasn't specifically picking a beach with waves. Like it looks good out there today. It was like no, it's hot. I'm gonna go to the beach.
Mm.
And it's like, oh, on the way, I was like, let me just go to Big Five and get a boogie board just because. Like I had those when I was a kid. They were fun.
Yeah.
So it was like one little thing, like I'm gonna try this one little thing. And now what this looks like is like every single day I check the surf report online for all the beaches that are close. And
Mm.
if I see that it's gonna be good in a few days' time, I block my schedule off and I'm like, I'm going. you know?
Yeah,
And I'm like,
yeah.
I don't care if I'm going by myself, if I'm going with the beat, doesn't matter. I'm going.
I think that's safe to say that's the one thing for you. I'm going to do my one thing, that's surfing,
Yeah.
you know. And fortunately, when you look back, right? So now you look back at your life from, a state of being on drugs, right? Being dependent on drugs, to probably hanging around with not so great people.
Yeah.
Um,
To
And
say the
now you
least.
look back at your life, you've got your business going, you've got your surfing going, you've got your relationship going, you've got a dog, you got a cat, you've got so much going on. And when you look back, like sometimes, that's why I'm a very strong person on journaling. Because you look back like 5 years ago, right? And you just look back at some of the things you wrote. It's like, wow, look where I am now. And
Mm,
you're not going to believe how much you've grown, mentally. It can be physically as well, if that's what you want to do, be a
right.
CrossFit person or something of that nature. But when you actually record your life, right? And I always say it's so good to record your life, because what a great gift you can give to somebody when you're no longer here, right?
Right.
Wow, what was my grandfather Ron like, right? What was he like? What did he think? How did he get where he is, And there's clues that every life leaves behind. There's ways that I've gotten to where I am in life that's totally different than anyone else on the planet. And that right there is pretty amazing.
Yeah. What would you say? I haven't journaled in like forever, right?
Mm,
And so, but something that I do a lot is I record videos, right? And some of them are marketing videos, some of them are just home videos, some of them are me just documenting like, look at these waves. This is, and
mm.
it's, but I'm doing it like all the time, like so much so that like Apple is constantly trying to get me to upgrade because of like
Wow.
storage
Yeah.
space in the cloud and stuff like that, and
Yeah.
um and so since I post a lot of video content, as you were sharing that, I was starting to think like that's almost like I almost I feel like I get the same thing from looking at my older videos. When I look at videos
Mm.
from like a year ago, 2 years ago, I'm like, oh, look at Lil Ron trying to do
Yeah,
this
yeah, yeah.
thing. And
Yeah.
it gives me that kind of like side by side comparison, you know? Um, but I don't know. What are your thoughts on that? Do you think that that can take the place of actually writing and journaling something that's strictly for you? Because it's different, because I know other people are going to see it. So I'm kind of putting on a little bit of a face like we
Yeah,
all do
yeah.
as humans.
I think I think that's a great point what you just said. I'm putting on a mask because they got to see the best Ron. Because you don't want to
Right.
video the worst Ron.
Right.
But I think, you know, what's important is how you feel. And you write that down in your journal. This is how I feel right now.
Mm. Yeah,
And
because I
if
don't do
it's
that in video content.
yeah, exactly, right? So if it's if you're, let's just say you're feeling negative, right? Or depressed, right? Or whatever it is.
Right. Anxious, fearful.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Or
that
or
spectrum of things.
powerful, grateful. There's all kinds of things. But, you know, before you go to bed, just take out that journal and hey, how did I feel? How did I feel about, you know, my girl checking out that dude or whatever. You know what I mean?
Right.
Or
Yeah.
the waves. I got to the waves. They said it was great waves. The way I got there and they sucked. It was flat. I thought I was on a lake. But, you know, the important thing is write down how you feel. And then what happens is like I like to write down how I felt on certain things every day. Not by a moment to moment thing, but I recall the day as I, you know, start going to bed. And then I'll just write a couple little things that only I need to know. It doesn't have to be a perfect sentence either. You just boom, boom, boom. And then I always do this at the end. Well, what am I grateful for? What great things happened today? Because I try to get my mind, or I get my mind to focus on how lucky I am, right? You
Right.
know,
That makes sense. And that's
you
not the
know.
same as me recording, documenting my life in video content. It's not.
Well, you know, you know, you've got to, you know, you've got to put your best foot forward a lot of times. You're not going to get on a video and say, "Oh, man, you know, I just got bit by a dog." Or, you know, my girlfriend just yelled at me or
Right.
you know, excuse me. But, you know, at the same token, don't take yourself so seriously either, you know. Enjoy
Right.
your life. Because it goes by fast.
Speaking of that, speaking of enjoying life, I just wanted to tell you this just for my own excitement about this. Um, I went out into the water yesterday, right? And I finally learned how to. I thought I was duck diving under waves appropriately.
Oh, you thought you were.
I thought I was. And
Yeah.
so and uh and okay, just for anybody who doesn't know what duck diving is, just bear with me for a second.
Diving
Um
for ducks. I got a mallard the other day.
Okay, let's I'm going to share my screen so I can show you what we're talking about here, right?
I think I know what
Um,
you're gonna say too.
okay. So this is on a surfboard. I'm on a bodyboard. It's a little bit different, but it's really the same. Duck dive bodyboard. Maybe there'll be a video. Yeah. So this is a long one. So we're going to turn the sound off so that it doesn't demonetize our video. So let's get to a part where he's actually showing how to do it. So that's basically duck diving, right? You go under the wave with your board,
Yeah.
just like that, right? Um, but
You're literally going under the wave,
right,
so you don't get pushed back to the shore, is what it comes down to.
right, and it avoids all of the turbulence when a wave is hitting you. And so I was doing that, but there was one little thing that that he did in that video that I wasn't doing. So with a bodyboard, they're really easy to press down into the water. And so I would get it down into the water, but I wasn't putting my knee on the like if this is the board right here, this is the nose, this is the tail, and my legs are hanging off here. When I'd push the board down, I wasn't putting my knee on it. and putting and then lifting my leg in the air to like jam it further down because it it takes all your weight and pushes it down. Before what I was doing was just pushing it down with my hands. So the board would only be like maybe a foot under the water and then like the lower half of my body is out of the water and the wave crashes on me and my feet. And then sometimes the board's all like from the wave
Mm,
because I'm not going all the way under it. And
mm,
and I would go out and like some bigger surf that's maybe like, shoulder height, head height, and I would still be really apprehensive, like because in my mind I thought like, oh, duck dive, like even duck diving under this to get out there, it's gonna suck. And that's because for me it did suck because I wasn't going under him. and
yeah.
and then it would push me back and I'd have to duck dive under like four in a row, and each duck dive took a lot of energy because I'm fighting the wave while I'm doing it. And so I went out Friday and I went out yesterday. And on Friday, I had my first experience. This is kind of like a separate point, but it just felt really cool. We went out to this spot and the waves were like nice little wedges, like they were kind of like triangles, And it was a beach break, and but they were like overhead, right? Just barely overhead. So, but for me, that's like 6 foot. And so I go out there, and I remember I thought I was out past all the breaking waves and I was just chilling. And then a set comes in where it's like, okay, I can't just float over this thing. And as I'm like floating up it, thinking that I can float over it, I can see like the lip starting to break. And I was like, oh shit. Like I'm either gonna like get thrown backwards or just
Mm,
duck dive into the side of this wave. Just try to. And I just push my board into the side, and I can feel like me going into like this wall of water and my feet and flippers sticking out in the air. And then it finally breaks and I can feel myself getting pulled back. And I was like, oh, and then I kick my flippers a whole bunch and like make it over and don't get thrown back with it.
mm.
That was like a pretty cool feeling to know like, oh, like you can do that even like halfway up a wave. I mean, of course you want to do it earlier if you can.
Yeah. I mean, like I paddle surf, right? So I'm standing on a board. Have you ever watched guys who are paddle surfing?
Yeah, there was one out there that day. There was a guy
Yeah.
out there.
And you're on now when you get those rogue waves that come in, right? Now you've got to like you swim square right into them. So if the wave's coming this way, right, you want to hit them this way, like straight on, like a T
Right.
to get over. If you're anywhere else, you're gonna get thrown off your board.
Well, what do you do if you're like in the spot like where I was at, where it's like you're trying to go over it and the lip is already there? You just got to bail and jump
Yeah,
off.
so that's a good point. So if you know that wave's gonna crash, like I absolutely know that wave's gonna crash. There's no way that I'm gonna make it before it starts curling, right?
Yeah.
Abandon it. Of
Just try
just
to
a
jump over the
just
top of it.
Now just jump into the wave, just hit the side, boom, right down, see you later, and whatever happens, happens. Because, when and I've done this before, but the board gets so vertical, now you're just gonna get catapulted backwards into it. But that's very rare because the longer you do it, I've been out there 10, 11 years now, but you start seeing like exactly what that wave's gonna do. You could just sense it.
Yeah.
And it's pretty cool. It's just like when you catch them, you just get more experience. Well, when I first started, I tried to catch every wave. I'm like, what the hell? There's a lot of waves you just can't catch.
Right. You're just not
But
in the right spot
yeah,
or whatever.
the waves just not the thickness you need to get you going or
Yeah.
whatever. So that just comes with experience, and then it's just like anything else, right?
Yeah.
For instance, take this, right? No matter what you're doing. Let's say you make a mistake. Well, it's not a mistake if you learn from it. So, unfortunately, when you're paddle surfing and you're learning from your mistakes, you can get, a board in the face maybe, or,
Right.
just you can take a penalty for that right away. Um, However, you learn through experience. So it's not really a mistake, is it? If you're learning from it, it's just another way of how not to do something.
Right. Like when I got my face all messed up, um, it was like 2 weeks after I bought that boogie board, and I learned basically I had tried to catch a wave that was just like this one that I duck dived into, but I
Mm.
tried to catch it by just turning around and just laying on my board and letting it take me. And it took me and it threw me straight into the bottom of the ocean or
Yeah.
straight into the bottom of the beach and drug my face against the floor. And so I learned like
Mm.
you should have went over that or under it, one of the two. You should have had fins on your feet so that you can actually paddle. Because on a
Yeah.
bodyboard, you need fins to paddle. And but yeah, it's all like that's never happened again. I learned, you know.
Yeah, exactly, So a
But
lot a lot of surfing's a lot like it's like anything. It's like life, right? You
right,
learn from your mistakes, you get better and better. It's another thing, right? So you just start surfing, right? Or you start boogie boarding, right? And you just want to
right,
get better and better. Well, I want to see what it's like to flip over a wave now. I want to see, you know what I mean? And that's the human spirit. That's the human. Yeah, it's just the way we're it's just the way we are.
of wanting to learn more and grow. Yeah.
Yeah,
So like yesterday when I went out, I found I chalked the day up to like a major success, and that's because as I was going out, the waves were probably like shoulder height. They weren't like 6 foot like on Friday. They're like four. And but what I did was every time I went to go duck dive, instead of pushing the board under right away, I would kind of like do like a crunch on my board. Like if you think like a sit up, even though I'm facing down. So it's like I would curl my feet up so that my knee was right by the edge of the board. And then I would push the board down. And I just did it once, kind of on accident. I just like tried to put my knee
yeah,
there before I even pushed it down. And when I did, my knee was there. I pushed the board down, and then I go under, and then I'm pushing my board with my arms down as far as possible. And I felt the nose of my board hit the sand on the seafloor. I
wow,
was like, oh crap, like I'm down here. Like I had to like pick it up out of the sand and then move it this way. And I did that. And then it's like I came up, I didn't feel the wave breaking on my legs or my feet or anything.
yeah,
And I was like, and the wave, I could hear it crashing behind me. And I was like, oh. And then I didn't have to aggressively paddle like I was before. I just kicked my feet, just kept paddling. Another one came, did the same thing, hit the ground again. It was like, and this is in like water that's like probably waist deep. So like the water was probably like where that light switch is, like on the door frame, just for reference. That's like how deep it was. And so I was getting like 2, 3 feet like under the surface like every time. Then after that, I had to go not as deep so that so I can not hit the ground. And I caught so many waves that day because it was no problem for me to get out. Every
yeah.
time I catch one, I just get right back out. And another thing that was really cool is as soon as a wave would break and be I'm riding a wave and then it would close out. And so on a bodyboard, if a wave closes out and you're not like in a barrel, like you're just on the end and it closes out, you get like thrown in front of the white water and you're still just going and all this white water's behind you. And what
Oh
I used
yeah,
to do, I didn't know what to do in that situation before. So I used to just ride it all the way into the beach because you can ride a boogie board all the way into, but then I'd have to like turn around and come in like from like 2 inches of water and like go through every single wave to get
yeah.
back out there. And so my friend, I asked him on Friday because I went with somebody who's way more experienced than me on Friday. That's why we went out where they were bigger. That's where he wanted to go. And I asked him when we were out there and sitting in the lineup, I said, "What do you do when the wave closes out and you don't want to ride it anymore? Like you want to go back?" And he's like, I was like, I tried to like throw my board in front of me and have my body dragging behind, but the waves
Yeah.
were big enough that day that I did that, and then I just got pummeled by a bunch of whitewater and kept going with it. And he's like, "Oh, dude, it's easy." He's like, "All you do is take your board and just throw it to the side and tuck into a ball." I was like,
Really?
I was like, "That's it?" Because you're laying on the thing. So I was like, "How do I get off the wave?" He's like, "Yeah, just throw it to the side and then tuck into a ball,
Hmm.
and then that's it." So I was like, "Okay." And I was doing that yesterday. As soon as a wave closed out, I'd just throw it off to the side, tuck into a ball, like do a bunch of flips, and then like get up, and I'm like, "Oh." And I'm like in
Yeah.
chest deep water instead of way in there. And then I realized after doing it, every time I watch surfing videos when people are done with their waves, they just like if they can't ride over the wave and come back, they just
Just drop right out. Yep.
yeah. It's like yeah, you just fall. It's
Yeah, you
okay.
just drop right out. But,
Yeah.
so, I've been in some pretty good surf, and you know how you're tethered on your board?
Hmm.
So I don't know if you've ever experienced this, but you you either fall off your board or you bail, right?
Right.
And then that wave hits that board and it just pulls your leg, right? Like feels like a shark's got you or something. It just pulls you right in, you know?
Yeah.
Pretty cool. It's pretty intense. I mean, you know, it's an experience.
Yeah. Since my board it's not as buoyant as your as like
Yeah,
especially a
paddle
stand-up
boards.
paddle board, you know.
Yeah.
Um the leash for boogie boards, for body boards, either go on your wrist or on your arm, depending on what kind of leash you have.
Oh, okay.
And so what I usually do is when I bail, since it's right there by my hands anyways, I like I bail and then I grab the leash because I don't want
Yeah,
it to just yank my wrist, you know?
yeah.
And so that way I'm like bailing and I'm underwater and I'm holding the leash and then but I can feel it still like yank me like this, but at least it's my arms instead of one wrist,
Okay.
you
Yeah.
know?
I've got a strong feeling that you're going to be surfing before you know it.
Yeah, yeah, I think so too. The
Um,
my
that's
only apprehension right now is it's not out of fear of doing it. It's it's surfing is it's not a cheap hobby, you know. The boards the boards aren't they're not like right now with I have three body boards, but they're each like $100 a piece, and
yeah.
depending on and depending on the conditions, like that's enough. Like I can go out any day with those three that I have. Two of them are exactly the same. One's like a backup because it got a little hole in it. So I have the one
Well,
that's
you've
like
got a favorite, I bet, right?
yeah. Um
Yeah.
and but but with surfboards that's like they're just marginally more expensive, you know?
Yeah,
Um
yeah.
and then you need different boards for different wave conditions too. At least
Well,
here, because we get a lot of different conditions depending on the swells
yeah,
here.
exactly, And what happens is like I have four stand-up paddle boards. And this is over years, right? This is
Right.
like over years. And then I like the first board I bought was really wide, and I could catch waves with it, but I bought it for lakes. I didn't buy it for the ocean,
Mm,
One of the guys that worked for me says, "Hey, I'm going to the ocean. I'm gonna throw my board in the ocean, see what happens." I'm like, "What? What do you mean?" You know what I mean? And this is before, like, a lot of people didn't paddleboard. Like when I first started paddleboarding on lakes a long time ago, people didn't even know what it was. They were like,
okay, yeah.
"Dude, I thought you were walking on water." I'm like, "Yeah, really?" You know? Um, but then when I got kind of, I don't want to say I got bored of the lakes, but once you catch a wave on a paddleboard, it's over, man. You just can't get enough of it. And then I bought another board. I'm like, wow, this board's really, really fast. However, the nose was pointed like it was too flat.
Okay. There
So
wasn't enough rocker in it.
yeah, when you catch a big enough wave, too much water would get on the front of the board. So then you got to really step back on the board to try to level that thing out.
Yeah.
Um, and then I got a after that I got one. I got a starboard, and it it's got like a nose that's pointed up. They call it I don't know, the wide point or something like that. Wide point, I think. And it was so much easier to stay in on the big waves, you know what I mean?
So let me ask you this. Did you ever like ride traditional surfboards or was it just stand-up paddle boards?
I rode I rode like I have done surfing first, right? But I
Okay.
wasn't like anything. I wasn't as good on a surfboard as I am on a paddleboard
Gotcha.
because the surfboards, like you gotta paddle hard and then you gotta do like a what I call a burpee. I don't know, it's like a
Right.
burpee. You gotta jump up on that board and then you gotta plant your feet. And I felt like, that is so much work, you know? So, um, I just kind of took the old man approach, but I love it, So it doesn't matter. To me, it's like I don't care how you get on it. Just if you can hit a wave, I don't care what you're in. Be in a kayak. There's
Right.
nothing like
I've
it,
seen
you
guys in
know?
kayaks out there, like little short kayaks.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly. And they're having a blast, right?
Yeah. Something really cool. My friend, um, who I went with on Friday, this is how he rides bodyboards, and this is why I might just stick with bodyboarding because it's just so versatile.
Okay.
Because it's called drop knee, right? And so anytime that he catches a wave, this is what he's doing. He's like he pops up on it like this, and he's like doing cutbacks
That's cool.
and let's see, like this dude's not doing much, right? But yeah, so you start off paddling, kicking, and then get up, and
Wow.
it's kind of cool. There's no fins on it, right? So
Yeah.
you're just like balancing, and but because there's no fins, you can do 360s and all this other stuff, and yeah,
That's pretty cool looking. Of course, isn't it funny though, right? Isn't it funny how, like, let's just go to another level, you know?
right. It's that same principle of like, okay, we got this. What else can I learn? What else can I do? How can I improve
Exactly.
this?
You know? And I think the human mind, right? Hey, I love paddleboarding. When I first got on a paddleboard, I'm on a lake, right? I remember my buddy, he bought this paddleboard and we were on this pond by his house. He said, Bri, try that thing. I'm like, what is that? That's a paddleboard. Wow. Stand on it, right? So I get up on a thing and I'm like, oh my God, boom, right into the lily pads. You know what I mean? Like
Right.
I couldn't even stand on the thing. And then you're like, well, I gotta conquer this. So that, you just keep doing effort to stay on it. Then I started learning like, okay, whenever I teach somebody who goes paddleboarding with me on a lake for the first time, I'll always be look at the horizon. Just paddle and look at the horizon. And it levels them off, you know what I mean?
Right.
Um, and speed always helps, once you get that momentum going on paddleboard, it's not as rocky or shaky, I guess.
Right.
But, of course, that's not good enough. Now we got to take it to the ocean. We've conquered the lakes, right? I just couldn't wait. When I was on a lake, I couldn't wait to get a big boat to go by so I could just try to catch a wave or try to, just stay on the board, you know?
Right. Yeah.
Um, and then it graduated to the ocean, and then I went out in a hurricane once.
Like a hurricane approaching, or it was like there's a
It was
hurricane right now
it was in the
here.
ocean. It was in the Atlantic, and it was out there, and it was just stupid, you know. I actually got a picture of it somewhere, but you could barely even get out, And my
Right.
buddy's
Because
like, "I'm not."
the waves got to be coming in at such short increments if the storm is close, right? So
Yeah.
it's like every 5 seconds there's another wave.
Yeah, it's all white water. It's ridiculous. But I went out there. Right? I went out there, I remember at the time, um, he's like, "You're crazy," And I'm like, "Hey." You know, it's just a joke. I'm like, you might have a lot to live for, but I don't. I'm going. You know, uh, but at any point, it was an experience, and that's just life, Now I'd never do that. I'd be like, yeah, no way.
Yeah. It's funny, my girlfriend, she used to ride stand-up paddleboard a lot before we had met when she lived in Texas. So this is only
Really?
doing it on lakes. And we went out on stand-up paddleboards. This was like last summer together here, like in a harbor area in Ventura. Um, and it was really hard for me to stand on. I remember that. I just started off on my knees and then eventually was standing by the end of the day and didn't fall in but came close. And she was telling me that she used to do like hit workouts on her paddleboard in the lake, like
Wow.
doing like burpees and stuff like that on the paddleboard. Like I'm like,
Yeah.
that's insane.
They
Like
ain't
talk about
they
taking things to another level, you
Yeah, I
know?
was in Aruba and I took a yoga class on a paddleboard in the ocean. And
How
they
was
they
that? Falling a lot?
Now, you know what? It's not so bad. They anchor the boards. They got these like it's like this round anchor and they put it down and the waves were not that bad, but they still existed there, even little
Right.
ones. It's different. Let's put that it's real different. Like I ain't
Yeah.
focusing on downward dog, you might say. It's but I did do that. It was fun. Yeah, there's so many things that you can do. Right? Like so look at us, right? So they've got this place I live in New Hampshire, but they have this place called it's Portsmouth, New Hampshire, and there's a group of people that go out on their paddle boards in the bay at night, you know?
Hmm.
And there's so many things you can do, so many people you can meet. Some people go, by Boston. They go down the rivers in Boston, and they're not powerful rivers in Boston, but people, and
Right.
that's another thing. People paddleboard serious current in rivers. It's crazy.
Yeah. What I know we only got like a few minutes left, but I'm curious um of your beach. Let's see. I want to look it up. Like when you go out, unless you don't want to blow up the spot, right? What's the name of the break that you
Go
usually go
to
to?
um, go to Surf Cam Cinnamon Rainbow.
Let me
This
see
is
if I can.
one that
Cinnamon Rainbow. Does this even pop up
put
here?
Surf Cam on there.
Okay, that wasn't Google search. I was looking Surfline. Cinnamon. Did I spell that right?
I think so.
Rainbow
I can't really see it that good,
Surf
but
Cam.
Surf Cam, yeah. See if you get that. And maybe it's probably yeah, that's it. So that's the that's the beach I go to most of the time.
Not bad. It looks like probably like 2, 3 feet. Oh,
Well,
there we go.
it's yeah,
No, yeah,
it's yeah, it's like it's different all the time.
right. But this is right now, right?
Yeah, that's right now. You got a guy riding one in there.
That's cool. The cam automatically zooms in on who's out there.
Well,
That's
it goes back and forth. Like it's gonna go from 14th Street to like 8th Street. And that's this like just a really good spot right there. See, there's 12th Street. These guys are
yeah, that looks
surfing
fun
about,
right there.
yeah. Yep.
Yeah.
Yep.
See, uh I could do this for hours. What I usually do is I look at like Surfline. I don't pay for the Surfline access, right? Oh,
Yeah.
actually, right here, that's Pipeline, obviously.
Yeah. I mean,
Uh,
that's.
yeah, but one of the spots that I go to a lot is on this little slideshow. Um, it's not the next one. This is New Jersey, but it's the one after this. It doesn't look like this all the time, but that's the one that's
Look
like
at
ten
that.
minutes away from my house.
Oh my
It's
God,
like
that's like
wintertime.
that's paradise right there. And I love the way that wave breaks.
Yeah, it's really it's like a roller. It's really good for
Yeah.
like stand-up paddle boards,
Oh,
longboarders.
it's like those places that you show right there. Like, look at that wave after wave.
Ooh,
That's like,
this is the harbor right now. It's green. This is where I like to go. Let's see. Um, it's not a camera because I don't pay for this camera. We don't have free cams in my area.
oh,
Um,
okay.
but just looking at this, how long is this going to be green for? Oh, for the rest of the day. See, this is how this is how it works for
Yeah,
me. I'm like, okay, for
I
the
gotta
rest of
go.
the day, it's good
Yeah.
until sunset.
Hey, see if you can get Rincon, Puerto Rico.
Hold on one second. I want to show you Ventura Harbor because this is my favorite spot. That one spot that I showed you was good. It was
Yeah.
good, but let's see. I want to. Where is okay? Just Ventura Harbor waves. I like this wave because it's a little bit more punchy. It's let's see. Dredge. Yeah. This is where I
Wow.
was this is where I was yesterday.
Those
They
are
they
big
weren't
waves.
they weren't this big yesterday,
Yeah.
but I like them because they're curly and punchy. You know what I mean? There's like a lot of weight behind them, and they're not like rollers, which is
Yeah.
good for bodyboarding.
See, I like the rollers,
Right
but
there,
you
that's a
catch,
roller.
yeah, that's a roller right there. You catch that, man, you're gonna go. You're gonna go pretty fast.
See, I like, yeah,
And no one's
that's
out there. No one, is anyone out there? Can I not see them?
no one's out there.
Wow.
Just some guy with his dog. Yeah,
Yep.
but you said to look up uh
Rincon, Puerto Rico. Rincon, I believe.
Rincon. It's trying to pull up the one that's close to me, which is not it. Let's see. Puerto. That's spelled Puerto Rico, right?
I think so. Puerto. I think.
Let's just type in Puerto Rico. These are the only two.
There's no Rincon surf like ring. It's like a known. It's like they have championship surf
Yeah,
meets
they probably
there.
call it. I've heard of it, so that's why it's like what? Um,
Hmm.
these are all Puerto Rico. Let's just do this. Rincon, Puerto Rico. Oh, is that the name of the city?
Yeah, it's like the town. See
Oh,
it?
that's why. That's why. Because the place that I was looking is like you have to know the name of the actual surf spot, you
Oh,
know?
okay.
So it was
Yeah.
probably there. We just didn't know it.
I don't really know if they even have a name for it.
Ooh, waves.
Surf cam right
Puerto
there.
Rico surf cam. What's it looking like today? Anybody watching this is just like, I guess we're just talking about surfing. Yep.
Yeah, we'll see you later. Hey, we hit some mind stuff. And there go all the
Okay. Oh yeah.
listeners.
They got all these different cams.
Yeah.
Jabo's cam. Oh, see, it's pulling me to Surfline. Oh, is it a free one on here? Freaking ads. All right.
Yeah. So I went there with a couple of my friends and we surfed and we paddle surfed. We didn't surf on Rincon because the waves are just they're too gnarly, they're too quick, they're too um big, and they weren't
Like
even
big
that
and
big.
punchy.
Yeah. And you'd get up. I got up on a couple of them, and they go from 10 to 18 feet
Yeah.
over there. And when you get, like, I would look for baby ones because believe me, I'm not that guy. But you catch a 8 footer and you're standing on that thing, you're like, oh my God, it's a scary situation. It's fun. It's just an adrenaline rush, but it is, man, you look down and you're like, because you feel like you're 20 feet in the air,
Yeah.
right? Because of your
Yeah.
height on the board. And
Oh
all of a
yeah.
sudden
I
you just get down and all of a sudden you go flying down into the pocket.
I forget about your own height factor because for me, I'm laying down, right?
Yeah,
And like
exactly.
on Friday, I caught probably a couple 6 footers, right?
Yeah.
And it's funny because my friend who's got like 20 years experience doing this, the guy who's riding on his knees, like what I showed you, um, the first wave I caught of the day, um, wasn't until I came back in, he was like, dude, he's like, I'm impressed. He's like, I was just sitting back watching. I wanted to see how you handled dropping in on that. Because these were like punchy waves, they weren't
Yeah.
rollers and they were like 6 feet, right? So
Yeah.
like they were like lipping hard, you know? And
Yeah.
and I just paddled. But I remember like being up there and it's like, oh, there's all the water down there, like way down there, and then there's the beach. Like, and it looks like I'm above it, you know? And
Yeah.
then it's like you just like go in and then you're just hauling ass, you know? Um, but didn't even think about the fact that like you're on a paddleboard, so
Yeah.
you're already standing up. Even people who are surfing, it's like they're popping up right then, but you're already standing up as you're like catching this. So it's like you're
Yeah.
on the thing and you're up here. Yeah.
Yeah. It's great. Things we do for adrenaline.
Right. But anyways, that's it for today's episode.
Right on.
I guess the kind of takeaway is like if you feel like you're stuck, maybe in a depressed mood or in a funk, um, like just look at like how like I know that we both just lit up and we're talking about all this stuff.
Mm.
And the way that I see it is because like we have first of all, we just have this thing in common, which so it's cool to talk about, right? But the other thing is like we're both like always like looking to like learn and improve and grow in this one little area, like in other areas in our lives as well, right? And so if you're feeling stuck, depressed, or like you're in a funk or in a mood that you can't shift out of, it's like, do you have something like that? Doesn't even have to be physical. Like it could be a video game that you just want to like max out all the levels on. You know, do you have
Mm.
something like that that you can just do? And if you don't, ask yourself what it possibly could be for you, and then just
Hmm.
start trying it.
And next thing you know, you're somewhere and you look back. You look back in your journal, if you're journaling,
Yeah,
and you're like, wow, look at where I was and look at where I am.
exactly.
Look at who I was and who I am now, you know? And that'll lead us to another podcast next week. I want to talk about, visualization on and how to get there through visualization.
Okay. Yeah. Let's do it next week.
Right on.
Thanks for
Always
tuning
a
in.
pleasure, Ron.
Always. See you guys.